Hello, so welcome back to my channel. So the topic of this video is about endometriosis. So this year I have been diagnosed with that, and I've also had surgery because of it. So I just want to talk about the symptoms and how to properly determine if this is a problem that you're having, because it's clear that the doctors don't know how to properly diagnose endometriosis at the ER. I'll just say that. So let me tell you about my experience and things to look out for. And if you're having these problems and symptoms, you may have endometriosis and you probably want to get some help as soon as possible. So the things that I had, the symptoms I started off with, first off, I'll say last year, I was consistently getting bacterial infections. Hadn't changed detergent, hadn't changed my diet, but just was getting infections after infections. And I was going to the doctor and he just kept giving me medicine. I'm like, no, we're not going to keep doing this medicine. I need to figure out what the cause is. We need to figure it out. So finally, after me refusing the medicine, he sent me to a specialist. And so I went to the specialist for the first visit, and we talked, and she was asking me the symptoms I was having, and I told her that I would notice that I would get abdominal cramps when I ate meat, bread, and meat and bread for sure. I can't think, it was one other thing I can't think right now. And I also told her that I felt as if I was clogged, like something was clogging the inside of me. I felt like I was clogged. And so she did a ultrasound on my lower abdomen area, and she told me that I had a 2-millimeter cyst on my right ovary. I'm like, oh great, okay. So maybe that's the problem of all this. So she told me to come back within 6 to 8 weeks so we can check it out and see, what's going on with that, and if we needed to get a biopsy to see what was going on with this cyst. So I made the follow-up visit with her, and I got to the doctor, and they tell me they no longer take my insurance, and I could not see the doctor today. I'm like, are you serious right now? Because the month before, I had a terrible period. So I had really, really bad cramps. I was feeling nauseated and just terrible. It was just a terrible month. So I really needed to see her. I'm like, we need to figure out what's going on, because, I had this. I had even thrown up this one particular time of the month. So I'm like, something's not right. I have never experienced this. We need to figure it out. So after realizing that I wasn't able to see that doctor, I just made an appointment with my regular gynecologist. I'm like, I need to see somebody. Something is going wrong. I need to figure out what's going on. So I left there and I called my regular gynecologist, and they tell me that I couldn't get an appointment. Now here it is. This was June. They told me that I couldn't get an appointment all the way until December. I'm like, are you freaking serious? I'm like, okay. I went ahead and made the appointment. I'm like, hopefully I can make it to then, but, So, let's fast forward to November. Nope, I'm sorry. Fast forward to August. So, August, it was a week before my birthday, so probably the week of the 15th or so. I had started my period again, and same symptoms again. I had felt lightheaded, headaches, and really bad cramps, and I was nauseated, and I threw up, and I'm like, okay, thinking everything's normal. So here it is, a week later, it got worse. So I still, my period had left, but I still had headaches, and I was feeling nauseated and sick to my stomach. I had chills, high fevers, and also I had a crook in the back of my neck. So I went to the emergency room. I ended up in the emergency room on my 30th birthday. Like, yay. The best way to spend your 30th birthday. So, anywho, I end up in the emergency room on my birthday because here it is. It was a whole week, and I was like, this is not stopping. So I went in and told them all the symptoms I was having and everything, and they ran all these tests and all these IVs and blood cultures and all this and all that. So they're like, well, everything's checking out normal, your white blood cells a little low, but everything else checking out normal. I'm like, okay, but I feel terrible. Like, what is wrong? They're like, well, it's probably just a virus. It'll run its course, no big deal. Just go home and it could last, what did they tell me, 6 to 8 weeks or something like that? I'm like, no. So at this time, they did not, I think they did do a CAT scan on my head, because I think it was the headaches at this point that really had me concerned. I kept having headaches and the fever. So they did do a CAT scan of my head at that particular ER visit. And I'm like, okay, so they didn't send me home with any medicine. They just told me, just to let it run its course, I'm like, okay. So I really wasn't okay with that. But I went ahead and went home. So here it is. They told me, if it didn't get better, to go and see my doctor. So I made my doctor's appointment. And that next day, still the same thing. I woke up and still had the fever, headaches, and just feeling terrible. I'm like, what is going on? And so this time I called my doctor. So of course they're like, oh, well, we can't see you, until next week. I'm like, well, I just went to the ER and they told me that I need to immediately get in with you, because I've already been there, and if they didn't figure out that I need to see you, somebody needs to figure out what's going on. They still did not see me. I still had to wait a whole another week to go to the doctor. So, you know what? It got so bad. I'm like, I'm going back to another ER. So this time I went to a different hospital, to the ER. And same symptoms. I'm still having the fever, crook in the back of my neck, headaches, just feeling terrible. So at this particular visit, I think I might have still been having the cramps as well. I think the cramps had started at this time. So they end up doing another ultrasound and a CAT scan, and come to find out the cyst that I had first found about back in June had now grown into, it went from 2 centimeters to 5 centimeters in a matter of 3 months. So the ER doctor was like, I'm not sure if you know this, but you have a 5 centimeter cyst on your right ovary, and that could be the problem. I'm like, oh great. That does not even sound good, and that's probably why I don't feel good. So that doctor referred me to a gynecologist, and thank God this gynecologist was able to see me the next day. So I went to that gynecologist the next day, and she was confused on why I was there, and I guess they didn't send over the right information. But anyway, so I told her, I'm like, I'm here, I was just at the ER, I've been having these problems, and I was told I have 5 millimeter cyst. And she's like, well, when did you first find out about the cyst? I'm like, I'm giving her the whole history about what's going on. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and order you an MRI, and I'm going to have you get some lab work done to check the tumor markers to make sure, that it's not a tumor. I'm like, okay, whatever. So they had the lab there at the office. I'm like, well, then they do this at the ER, but, I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go and get the labs done in office, and then I go home, thinking nothing of it. So the very next morning, the doctor's office calls me, and I'm like, oh my God. Anytime they call the very next day, it's not good. So I'm freaking out. So she's like, yeah, we got your lab results back, and I would like you to come in so we can discuss them. I'm like, oh, okay. Every time, I don't like stuff like that. So anywho, so I'm freaking out. I'm like, okay, I can come in today. Thank God I was off that day. So I went in, and went into the office, got in the room, and she's like, okay, the doctor will be in shortly. So the doctor comes in, she pulls up my file on the computer. She's like, yeah. She's like, the lab work we took the other day, you know, it came back. And she said, and it doesn't look good. She said, your tumor markers are really elevated. There's 2 levels. One level is like supposed to be at a 50 and you're at an 80, and then the other one is supposed to be at a 40 and you're at a 60 or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers. But anyway, she said that the tumor markers were pretty much pointing to cancer. That's pretty much what she said. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, she shouldn't have said that, first off, because without having done a biopsy or whatever. So I'm like freaking out. I'm leaving the doctor's office in tears, like, I got cancer, oh my God. You know, and I shouldn't even let her speak that over me, but at the time I'm like, you know, it kind of, I was kind of thinking the same thing with the fact that with the cyst growing so fast, I kind of was thinking the same thing in my head. But I'm like, it could just be, you know, just a regular benign tumor, you know, no big deal. But so she told me that she was going to refer me to an oncologist for to go and get it looked at and get it checked out to make sure that it was not cancer. So I called the oncologist, made an appointment. I think I ended up having to wait like about 2 weeks to get in to see her. So I went in to see her, and she didn't do much. She just had me sit down. She didn't do any blood work or anything at that particular visit, but she told me, she's like, yeah, she's like, I got, you know, the lab from the other doctor, and she said, I really need the MRI to be able to fully see exactly what's going on in there. She said, but please don't be alarmed. She's like, it sounds like a classic case of endometriosis. She said it's probably what does she call it? An endometrioma, which is the cyst, that's what it's called. And she said it's probably just that. It's common for girls of your age. And with the tumor markers being elevated, that's totally normal, because the endometrioma, it causes pressure in that area, and it could cause those levels to be off for that reason. I'm like, oh, thank God, because, you know, the other doctor was pretty like, oh, it's cancer, you know, without even knowing. So she kind of eased my mind by telling me that, you know, it's really nothing to worry about. It's probably just, you know, a classic case of, I see this all the time, you know, no big deal. So at that particular visit, she put her fingers inside, and she felt the cyst. So the cyst was clearly there, and it was big and needed to come out. So she's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and just set you up for surgery to get it removed now. And then by the time you get the MRI, you know, everything will just, we'll have all that by the time you get the surgery, and everything will be fine. And then she did mention about if she did have problems with getting the cyst out, that she would possibly have to remove my ovary. And then she would also have to remove, I think she said, I don't know what, it's some muscle in the abdominal area, that she might have to possibly remove that from that area, and also have to possibly remove lymph nodes in that area. And I'm like, I don't want any of that. I just want the classic surgery, you know. So I'm praying. I'm like, God, please just let it just be a basic surgery. Let it not be cancer. And just, so left that visit, got it scheduled. So scheduled for November 19th, 2019. So, by this time, you know, I had started doing research on my own on trying to figure out exactly what endometriosis was. And I did research, and so one doctor, or whatever, one video I watched, it pretty much was saying that endometriosis is the endometrium, so the lining of the uterus. Typically when you have your period, it's supposed to bleed out, and, you know, through your menstrual cycle. But with endometriosis, for some reason, it does not flow out, and it flows into itself, which can later cause the cyst. So I'm like, what would cause it to do the opposite of what it's supposed to do? Like, something doesn't sound right. What would cause it to go backwards? And so I sat and thought about it, and I was doing more research. And this is my theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes sense to me. I don't know if you remember me mentioning me feeling clogged. So my thoughts are that my fallopian tubes were closing, which would cause the blood not to be able to flow through them, which would cause it to go backwards to cause the endometriosis. I don't know if that's really what's taking place in my body, but it just made sense to me because I'm like, why would the blood, if it's supposed to flow this way, why is it flowing that way? And what will cause it to flow the opposite way of where it's supposed to go? So my thoughts were that my, like I said, my fallopian tubes were clogged. So I started looking up how to open up your fallopian tubes, massages, yoga's definitely good for it. There's natural herbs you can use for it. And so I had started doing that in the midst of me getting surgery. And so my next period, I mean, when I tell you, I really want to say the yoga because I didn't do much of the herbs. And then I did do a little bit of the muscle stimulation. But for the yoga, I definitely did not have any bad cramps on my next period. And no nausea or any of that once I started doing the yoga and started to massage that area and open up those tubes. So like I said, this is my theory. I don't know if it's true, but I believe endometriosis comes from your fallopian tubes being blocked. So you want to work on unblocking your tubes so that they flow normally how they're supposed to. So like I said, that month period was fine and normal. And so the 19th, I went in for surgery. Surgery was a success, no problem with surgery. She did it laparoscopically, so I had 4 holes in my stomach and one right above my abdomen. And it was a day surgery. I can't remember how long the surgery was. But anywho, I'm thanking God that it was a planned surgery and it was as expected. Like she said, so after she removed the cyst, she did send it to the lab for pathology to see if it was cancer. And thank God it came back non-cancerous. And she was able to remove the cyst all by itself. And she did not have to take my ovaries or do any of that other extra stuff that she spoke of. And I just thank God for that. And she also, something I found interesting, she told me that the cyst had attached itself to the back of my rectum. And I had told my mom right before I had the surgery that I thought I had blood in my stool. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I think I had blood in my stool. And come to find out, that is probably why, because the cyst had attached itself to the back of my rectum. I know it sounds gross, but it did. And she told me that she had a hard time getting it removed from in the back of my rectum. But thank God she was able to get it out without, any damaging of any other areas or all that. So, with the endometriosis, so if you do have the chills, the headache, fever, neck cramps, nausea, bad cramps, if you have trouble have hard bowel movements and it feels like there's something like in the back of your uterus that's like something that just doesn't feel right when you have a bowel movement, you probably have endometriosis, because I had been experiencing this for a while and I didn't know what it was. And then I'm glad that I was able to get around all these doctors and they were finally able to diagnose and let me know what it was. And I just want to share some information with you guys about my experience with endometriosis. And I believe by the removing of the, by stimulating the fallopian tubes and getting those back open, I believe that will lower your chances for having any other issues with endometriosis. Also, the yoga is very helpful with the endometriosis. There's herbs and other natural things you can do to open your fallopian tubes, because I believe that is the cause. The tubes are being blocked. Also, some things to avoid with endometriosis. I know red meats for sure. Definitely do not eat red meats. I really have been cutting back from all meat because it's the hormones in the food is another thing that's playing a part in all this. So be mindful of your diet. Pretty much just change your diet. I've been doing less meat. I've really been trying to stay away from bread, and I love bread. I've been trying to stay away from pasta, and I love pasta, but those things trigger and could cause inflammation, because that's what happens with the endometriosis. So it caused inflammation in that area, and that caused you to have the bad cramps and the nausea and all that stuff. So you want to avoid those type of foods that cause inflammation, and you can Google and see the foods that cause inflammation, and you probably want to just change your diet and remove some of those foods out of your diet to have a better experience with endometriosis, or eliminate it altogether. Like I said, my doctor, after I had the surgery, she did tell me that if I did have any painful periods after the surgery, that she could refer me to an endometriosis specialist. But with the things that I've been doing with this last period, back to normal. I didn't have any nausea, no bad cramps. It was back to normal, like a normal period. And I believe it's all due to the yoga, because that's the only thing that I've really been doing consistently. And I'll post a picture of the yoga poses that I'm speaking of that helps with this area and helps stimulate that area, and also helps open up those tubes in that area. And changing my diet as well. The diet, I have not been like gun-ho doing exactly real good on the diet, but I do stay away from the bread for sure. And the red meat, I don't do red meat. And then I also kind of just been staying away from all meat, really. The only meat I have been doing is chicken, and I'm really trying to eliminate chicken and pretty much just lean more towards seafood, if anything, or fish. So I hope this video was helpful. That's just my experience with endometriosis and my thoughts on what causes it and what's triggering it. And my doctor did share with me, she told me if none of this other stuff works, she did tell me that they recommend that I want to say the week before or a few days before you're about to start your period, to start taking Motrin, because it helps with the inflammation. So pretty much it's the food causing the inflammation, which will make your period bad and have you with the bad cramps and all that. But I believe the source of the problem for endometriosis is possibly your fallopian tubes being blocked. If you can get those tubes open, keep them open, then you probably won't have any problem with endometriosis. But like I said, I am not a doctor. This is not proven, but I'm just letting you know my experience with it and what I've been doing to offset my problems. And like I said, I have not had any problems since I've been doing the yoga. The yoga is one thing that has really helped me in switching up things in my diet. And also just drink a lot of water as well, because water will help flush out all that, and just avoid any foods that cause inflammation, because inflammation is one of the known causes for the bad cramps and all that. Now with my endometriosis, I didn't have heavy periods. I know some people did have heavy periods with theirs, and I know that cramps is also a problem. Bad cramps is an issue that some people have with their endometriosis. But since I had surgery and I've done the yoga and kind of changed my diet, I have not had any problems. And it's only been a month, and I recovered really fast with the surgery. She wanted me off 6 to 8 weeks. I just went back to work 2 weeks ago. So I was out for about 2 weeks. I was off work for 2 weeks after the procedure, and I was fine. Like, the first day I took pain medicine, and then one other time I took pain medicine. But other than that, I did not have to take pain medicine, and I was able to go back into my normal workflow and work schedule and not have any problems after the procedure. So that was good. And yeah, I hope this video was helpful. Please share with other girls or friends that you know who are having problems with endometriosis or having these symptoms. These are some red flags, just to let you guys know, if you're having these symptoms and going to the ER, and the ER are telling you that you just have a virus and it's just going to go away on its own. Now I'm talking about